Welcome to Reddit Aliens. When have you ever seen true evil in somebody? Not safe for work. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I watch a YouTube channel called Kit Boga, and he trolls scammers by pretending to be an old lady, for example. Even though he pretends to cry, these scammers are heartless and even insult him, who they believe to be an old lady, or threaten his family. My mother has multiple myeloma and breast cancer. She has been going to the same hospital since she was diagnosed with both. This particular appointment, the lady that has to give her the shot with her blood thinner in it had never seen her before. They always give her the shot in her stomach. Takes just a second. This lady was looking my mama in the eyes while she pressed the plunger of the needle down so slowly. My mom was saying how much it hurt and started to cry, and the lady just kept making eye contact, saying nothing. I knew then she gets off on hurting sick people. I also had similar experiences when my son was shot and had a lengthy stay in a hospital. There are some psychos working in healthcare. My ex kept touching my parents' elderly cat on her paws. She was a spicy old lady who absolutely did not like her paws touched. Usually though, she'd give you a few warnings before she would snap. When she snapped though, she would snap pretty hard. She growled at him several times, had her ears flattened, and swatted at him half-heartedly a couple of times. I told him a few times that he was going too far a bit. I told him he better stop. Granted, I assumed that if she had bit him, he would just laugh it off. She snapped and bit the absolute hell out of him, and he pulled back his fist like he was going to punch her, but luckily he stopped. He then screamed about crushing her skull in. I was stunned. He was not joking, and he was genuinely mad. I immediately pulled him away from her. He grumbled some more threats under his breath, and I made him go outside. He had told me about how an ex-girlfriend of his had strangled their own cats before this, but after this, I don't think it was his ex that had done it. There were other signs that he had a severe lack of empathy and remorse that would come later. Part of the reason I was so stuck in my relationship with him was out of fear. I really feel like he could easily, seriously hurt someone. Well, I'm happy to hear that you got out of that relationship eventually. I'm sorry you had to go through that. My mom, anytime she hits my brother. I've never had a problem when she hit me because it was relatively rare, maybe around 5 times a year, less now that I'm older. However, my brother gets hit 5 out of 7 days a week, and I can't help him, and it's absolutely devastating. My sister's abusive ex only gets to see his young daughters some weekends. Lately after his visits, he's been making his goodbyes very dramatic and sad to the point that the oldest, 7-year-old niece is completely wrecked for days every time she sees him. I'm talking nightmares, bedwetting, and she has a stutter. When my sister confronted him about this and asked him to stop making it harder for their daughter, he completely admitted he was making it as horrible as possible because a child should be traumatized every time they're taken away from their father. He has a mile-long list of why he's evil, but his views on parenting are the most horrifying. He also believes that if a baby bites its mother while breastfeeding, the mother is supposed to train the baby not to do this by pulling the baby's hair or otherwise causing pain for pain. Basically, he's a strong believer in child abuse. Me. I lost my fiance in 2008. She was my world. She was everything that kept me together back then. After I lost her, I went into deep depression that led to paranoia after not seeking treatment. I was alone. Eventually, I decided I would go purchase an AR-15 and leave this world in a bloody and justice-filled fashion. I was going to kill the man and the family of the man that took her from me because the justice system is broken, and he got away with it. I'd then wait for the cops and make the headlines by having a bloody shootout with the police, then blow myself and them up with pipe bombs I'd concealed on myself. I purchased the lower receiver online and put the upper together first. I found the location of the family. I planned it out. The day the lower came, I picked it up from the FFL and went home and took a bunch of mushrooms. I put my gun together and put the clothes and gear on. I went to the mirror, fully tripping at this point, and looked at myself. I looked hurt, confused, and unable to save myself. I was ready. The trip began to intensify, and I kept going back to the mirror. Eventually, I looked at myself and just stared into my own eyes and saw all the hate. I told myself I'm sorry, and being as high as I would, I stood there and opened up to myself, pouring out all my emotion and sadness. I talked myself out of it by having pity on myself, and I saw the raw emotion in my own eyes. It changed me. I snapped back into reality. I still have the gun. I have no desire to harm anyone. My mom's eyes when she beat me for the first time. I was 5 years old and asked her for help with my homework. She tackled me and just started throwing punches at my face. I looked her right in the eye the entire time and saw the eyes of the devil. Not even trying to be corny, but my God, the look on her face of just no remorse and pure rage is one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Used to work at a pharmacy and had a regular patient who would constantly abuse every member of our staff. My pharmacy was largely comprised of women and ethnic minorities with very few exceptions, and he would find every opportunity to use racial and sexist slurs against us whenever something didn't go according to his liking. This abuse usually occurred over the phone. He was elderly and had a relative pick up his prescriptions most days. On the few times he came in himself, and the first time I met him in person, he made one of my coworkers cry, and I saw him smile and kind of chuckle to himself. Never had seen someone so satisfied about hurting someone else, and haven't since. My wife and I were out at a restaurant, and on the way out a guy called my name. I saw a hand waving me over from the bar. It was this guy who worked for a fuel supplier that we use. So my wife and I said hello, and he went into that drunk guy thing where he insists on buying us a drink. My wife said she was exhausted and will take a rain check. We said our goodbyes and went out. As we're walking to the car, the drunk fool attacks us. He's all fists. He's a big gym rat type. I'm not small, but he is out of my mind. His first attack knocked me down. I got up as he went for my wife. I grabbed him, and when he looked at me, his eyes were so full of hatred, I was startled. Luckily, some people in the restaurant saw his attack and came pouring out. It took about 4 of us to hold him for police. I gave statements to the police and the DA, but never saw him again. He looked like a demon was in his head. Recently, when I passed by my dad in the kitchen, he stared at my ass all the way until I went to my room, and the time I was 17 and left the apartment to visit a friend, and my dad met me outside and said in a very evil way that I can't go because of him being overprotective and thinking I'm meeting with boys, when in reality, he's just protecting his own dirty thoughts. Oh, also, when he beat the shit out of me when I came back from a party as a 17-year-old, he was again projecting and said I must have been doing dirty things and suggestive dancing. Some years ago, in my country, we established private pension scheme using investment funds as parallel with state-run Social Security, heading for bankruptcy as in many countries. One politician was very outspoken about how only state should manage pensions, and after he won the next election, he did not have enough votes to actually cancel the private scheme. So he just moved all the people to the worst funds, changed their allocation. This was on the beginning of the biggest stock market bull run in history. He literally robbed millions of people of their pensions just out of spite or to prove his point. If that is not evil, I don't know what is. A spiteful politician acting in their own self-interest and not their constituents? There's a shocker for you. I don't believe in evil, but I have a friend who's a psychopath, and he once let me see what he looked like when he wasn't putting on his normal person face. It was effing chilling. Just dead behind the eyes. We're still friends. I just appreciate all the tricks he's learned to make socializing with other people more comfortable for the other people. There were so many times where I saw my younger brother's dad have that evil look in his eye, but the one that always sticks out to me is when we drove back home after a long day in the city. It was close to 10:30 p.m. on a school night, and obviously my brother and I were tired and cranky since we were young kids. He made us unpack the van, move and organize everything in the garage before showering and going to bed. There was a part where one of my brothers, who was the same age as me, pushed me into the boxes, and I had hurt myself. I started crying, and upon hearing that, their dad came storming in, picked up my brother, who pushed me by the collar, started screaming in his face asking what he had done, pulled his arm back like he was going to hit him, and spitting in his face. I was upset before seeing that, scared the living shit out of me. I was screaming at him to stop, and to put my brother down, but he only did that when my mom came running out. We were only 8 or 9 at the time, while my other brothers were 3 and just a newborn. I had an uncle who was super religious, Christian, and used a good book to justify all manner of atrocity. He was for killing anyone, repeat anyone, including the simply inexperienced and ignorant, and little kids never exposed, that didn't live by the Bible and acknowledge its truth, and a hard political conservative, so anything left of fanatically Republican was deplorable to him. He was cool with whatever the fundamentalists allowed, so all the rapes, misogyny, genocide, going into the historic crusades and inquisitions and stuff, and whatever big violent allowances were. My mother is pure evil. The things she did to me when I was a child prove that enough, but it gets worse. She takes great joy in screwing with people. It doesn't matter if they're family, friends, or strangers. She has bankrupted sweet old ladies, manipulated someone in attempting murder on their spouse. The list goes on and on. Every single time she does this evil shit to people, she celebrates. People end up in the hospital, in jail, losing their homes, having nervous breakdowns, or really broken to the point they will never be the same again. What makes her evil is that she knows what she's doing is horrid. She knows that she is destroying their lives, yet she celebrates the destruction, pats herself on the back, and takes time to watch this person fall to pieces, then moves on to her next victim without a second thought to the fact that she just completely destroyed a human being. Too many times. The absolute lack of remorse people have. There are so many people who would literally leave you to rot for practically no reason. Words don't do it justice. I've been betrayed by friends and family, manipulated, literally intentionally tortured, sexually and psychologically violated, denied death, abandoned, and had my hopes led on and strung out, lost everything to a pickpocket, witnessed the few people I cared for be violated sexually without any way to help them, and more. I could write paragraphs upon paragraphs about the horrors I've endured. I've realized that now I'm not only afraid of going through any of these horrible things again, but I'm haunted by not only my memories, but also this body. I don't want to be me anymore. I don't want to be the person who went through all those horrible things. Those people who are responsible for doing these things to me are pure evil. Some of them might not have understood how much I had been through before they hurt me, but every day when I wake up, I hope it's my last. I still try to kill myself occasionally. Sorry. I'm sorry for the pain that you've had to endure in this life. Hopefully you can find an outlet or continue to write about it. I'm glad you're here. Stay with us. This isn't mine, but my grandpa's. Back in the 1980s, Brian Dugan lived in the basement of my grandpa's cousin. My grandpa met him one day, and he tells me that looking into his eyes was like staring into a void. There was nothing there but evil. I hope this makes some kind of sense. It's almost 3 in the morning, and my brain has gone to mush. Also, if you decide to look this guy up, proceed with caution. This dude is disgusting. My dad aggressively chased my grandma's chihuahua into a corner while yelling at him when I was like 7. I don't remember exactly what happened, but he was laughing really hard. I ended up taking the chihuahua later in his life because he was being severely neglected. Every time my dad came around, he would go into a frenzy and damn near scream. His name was Coco. He's dead now, but he was a very good boy, and I can't imagine any reason anyone would want to harm or scare him. My uncle had an MI, myocardial infarction. At our home, we called his wife, new wife, married about 3 years ago, to come. We didn't say that he died to avoid shocking her, we just said he's sick. She was late for about 4 hours. Later that day, we found out that she went to his home because they were almost going to get a divorce, broke into the house, changed the locks, faked a contract to deprive his kids from the first wife of the inheritance. She even came to search the dead body for credit cards, and started a fight when she couldn't find when she broke into the home. She brought her teenage daughter with her to prepare to accuse anybody who tries to push her out of sexually assaulting the daughter. The bitch got half of what she deserved. 2 years later, that daughter died of leukemia. Unfortunately, the bitch still lives on the stolen villa and is still alive.